Microservices are an architectural style as opposed to a specification. And because of it, the definition of it can be a bit fuzzy. However, think about it in terms of the spirit of the web. Small pieces loosely joined. The web grew up that way where everybody could publish independently without coordination, and it supported great growth, a decentralized model. When it comes to microservices, think about it in the same way. Can you build, version, update without having to impact those that are using your service? That is a great test of whether you have the right the right construction or not. Think of it as well as splitting up the monolith. Most applications that were built over the last 20 years followed an integrated approach where you put everything on one machine and you sort of grew that machine as time went by. That can be pretty helpful because everything is together up to a certain point. However, as you grow, you hit certain walls that have too many dependencies and that ultimately become a very big a very big block to moving forward, to being able to version, to being able to grow, to being able to scale. And so ultimately you want to be able to have this decoupling. And here's something to think about. If you have to update your microservices together, they're not loosely coupled. If you have to bring in your team and everybody has to be there to be able to gauge the side effects of your changes, that means you're not loosely coupled. So as much as you can, follow a shared nothing approach. Another thing to think about is oftentimes people think, well, we have independent microservices, but we're all writing to the same database, which means that if you update the schema in the database, you could impact everybody else. And so the guidance here is very clear. Keep your microservices independent. Keep the state that you associate with your microservices independent as well. And we could even push this further out to say you want a separate database for every microservice, not only a database, you in fact want a different machine for every microservice. And this is something that many people do not do. They have multiple microservices sharing one computational environment, which means that if the environment goes down, everybody goes down. A much better approach is to create small virtual machines for every microservice and be able to address load by creating more instances of them to be able to address robustness in the same way. So ultimately, as mentioned, we want to use as much as possible the share nothing approach. Do not share data structures, database schema, or other internal representations of objects. And ultimately, you want to update without notifying the rest of the team. You want that level of separation. Think about it as you would cloud services. Cloud services that are offered to the public can be updated without the public finding out. That means that you rely on that service, yet the team that is constructing that service does not notify you when they're going to work on their code, when they're going to change the way in which memory is allocated, when they're going to update the performance. You simply rely on the service, think about it in terms of its API, and you go on about your business. That is a really nice level of encapsulation. You do not have to think about what they're doing. They simply provide you that service. If you can achieve the same within your environment, where you're responsible for the microservice, you simply provide an API. Nobody has to find out about what you're doing. As long as you're providing the level of service that is required, then that's a really, really good place to be. The other thing is to deploy not just in VMs or in isolated VMs, but to deploy in containers. There's a lot of tooling that now can provide you IDO scaling and other features when it comes to the packaging that is in a container. Not only that, this will help you when it comes to your deployment. There's a great deal of fabric that is now available and mature throughout all of the cloud vendors. And so to the degree that you can, if you're not maintaining state within your microservices, you want to be stateless, which means that you can then address scale by simply creating more of the microservices that you have. And so, as mentioned in the beginning, this is a style. This is not necessarily a specification. There's great books by O'Reilly if you're looking at technical design and you want some good reference. Some of them are only books, which means that they are for free and you can download readily. If you're looking more at the business side, the organizational side, the impact as to how you need to change, there are good publications from authors from Netflix and Google and other companies.